Do you need to sell, but you hate the idea of selling? Well, don't worry, you're not the only one. In fact, this is a very, very, very common problem that many people have. And firstly, they don't know why they're doing it or why they have such a big problem, because they know they need to sell themselves or their ideas or their products or their company, but they still hold back and they don't know why they do that. So this is what this short video is going to be all about. Now, the interesting thing is, it's not just people who are not salespeople who need to sell that have this problem. We work with many salespeople who have exactly the same problem. And they understand it better because they've been through sales training and they're a good salesperson. But even so, they hold back and actually hold back from enjoying selling and hold back from some of the actions and the tasks they need to do within the sales process. So why does this happen? This is what we're going to talk about, and how do you fix it, obviously. So if you don't like selling, that's one thing. But what we found is actually the biggest problem is that a lot of people absolutely, I use the word hate there, hate the idea of being called a salesperson. And we've even had this when working with people who do actually say, I'm a salesperson. And I'll explain why in a second. So they hate the idea of being a salesperson. But what is it about being a salesperson that people dislike so much? And it's usually down to this. Do you hate the idea of being thought of as pushy or aggressive or immoral in some way? Being nasty, being not a nice person? Because if you are proud of yourself for your behavior and your morality and your ethics and the way you like to approach people, if you have a issue with people who have sold to you in the past, who have been pushy, aggressive, or not very pleasant, this is probably where, and this is where I would say 80% of the people we work with who have a hard time selling. Not talking about skills. This is about skills come later, but stops them from learning the skills or using the skills they already have. This is the biggest problem. The biggest reason why people don't like selling, even though they need to, is they don't want to be thought of as the stereotypical salesperson who is aggressive and dishonest and nasty, and just pushy and not very pleasant to be around. In some way, one person recently said to me, it's just a bad person. And if you are a good person who's proud of how you behave within business or in how you conduct yourself in this respect, to be thought of as someone who behaves like this. And we've all had an experience of being on the receiving end of a very, very pushy salesperson. Now, the problem with this is about reacting to an extreme cliche of one sales style. It's almost like the pit bull sales style. And the advantage of that sort of aggressive salesperson who just never takes no for an answer, they will always get sales. And they often leave behind them a load of chaos of dissatisfied customers, and people felt they were pressurized. But they will always get sales. But that's just one sales style and an extreme reaction to it. Because if you've been on the receiving end when you've been pushed into making a decision that you realize you wish you hadn't made, you don't want to be thought of that sort of person. So this is the reaction that stops people who need to sell from selling. And when I was talking, we're working with salespeople who it's their job to sell, they're training to sell, this is their profession. This is the same problem they often have as well, because they don't want to be thought of as that sort of person. So what happens is they hold back any time that they think they might be thought of as that sort of sales style. So even professional salespeople with lots of skill, lots of knowledge, who don't behave in this way, they're not that sort of person. They're so fearful of it. We're so worried about being thought of that way. They hold back, and they, funnily enough, lose sales, they lose income. Business growth is stunted. And this is the consequences of not selling in a good way. So obviously loss of income, loss of commission, business growth is stunted because you're not getting the customers in that you could. Here's an interesting one. If you don't want to be thought of as a pushy salesperson, you don't want to sell because of it. Often what happens is we don't explore our true value. We don't really look at our true value as a salesperson would and say, how would I explain that? What is the true value to my client? Because you've not gone through or allowed yourself to go through the process of really understanding the value to your client. So often what people do is when they have this problem is they not just don't tell people, they don't tell people, push your ideas forward in a meeting, for example. You don't promote yourself either in marketing or that you say, hey, I can do that, I'm good at that. They don't actually examine their true value. And this is especially so when it's a service that you offer. Maybe your company offers, but you as a person, your knowledge and experience you've built up over the years, you won't let yourself go through the sales process to actually understand the true value of what you've got to your clients. So number 3 is really important, but it's often a hidden one, all for the same reason. Not being thought of as a nasty person, a bad person, stops people from selling and examining themselves and how they would sell themselves. So what does not selling cost you? Because it's quite an expensive thing. This reaction to making sure that nobody ever thinks of you, nobody judges you or criticizes you for being something that you're not. Because you've got to remember this. If you have such a big reaction to not wanting to be thought of this way, the chances are that you're not this sort of person at all. You're a decent person who won't sell the wrong thing. You won't be pushy. You will want your client's best interests at heart because just you're a decent person. So it's the reaction to this that holds people back rather than actually being a real problem. So when I say working with my clients, deal with this big issue because it's usually very deep in their heads and they just don't ever understand why. When I explain, well, can you explain what you do? Or perhaps could you, tell people, communicate to people, the value of what they do. Oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Yeah, I'm happy to explain. As soon as you use the word selling, boom, it triggers all this fear and negative consequences off. And they stop doing what they should be doing, and they stop themselves from learning how to sell better. So selling is a skill. Selling takes practice. And if you have to do this to achieve your goals and make sure that you're looking after your family and earning the money you should be earning and having the lifestyle you want, if you've got that extreme reaction, people just don't learn how to sell better. So it's a real shame because, as I said, most of the people we work with are not like these aggressive people. They're not nasty. They're not bad. They're not trying to rip you off. They're not trying to pressurize anybody. So it's a problem that's created by the fear of being called this, but then it stops people doing it really well. So what if you could do it in a way that didn't make you squirm with embarrassment and which fits your personality? You don't have to be pushy. You don't have to be aggressive. You just have to know your true value and be confident how to sell. So this is something we regularly work with people with, to shut this thinking down. And it's expensive. And it happens even to some of the best salespeople. I was speaking to someone very recently, working with them very recently on this. And they wouldn't promote themselves. They will sell a product, but they wouldn't promote themselves into a new position because they didn't want to be thought of as, their expression was, one of those people in the shiny suits who just, well, I won't say it because I basically swore, talks nonsense, shall we say. So they wouldn't promote themselves. But what if you could do it in a way that makes you feel very comfortable with your own style, so you can learn the skills of how to actually get rewarded for your value of what you do? Because that's what we do. We help people make sure they can do that, have the confidence to actually talk about themselves, talk about their product, and talk about what they do. But the biggest problem to start with is this huge reaction to not wanting to be thought of that sort of person. Arrogant, big-headed, fake, pushy, nasty, rude, aggressive, con man. I've had someone say that to me. If you've got that getting in the way, you'll never let yourself truly, comfortably and confidently explain what you're really good at. So if you know this is getting in your way, let us help you turn this stuff off inside your head so you don't have to worry about that. you can just get on with learning how to be better at just telling people how good you are. And if you have a problem telling people how good you are, that's another version of this. This is more about the imposter syndrome. But imposter syndrome does the very similar thing. So the fear of being thought of as an aggressive, horrible person, that definitely gets in the way of sales. But also, in a similar way, so does imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough to sell this. This is back to what I was talking about with your value, believing in your value. So if you've got any of that sort of problem going on in your head and you just hold back from telling people what you can do and do it comfortably and do it confidently, if you hold back from that and you know you should be doing it, but you won't let yourself, get in touch. This is what we solve. It takes about 4 weeks. That's about it, 4 weeks. And then you'll be able to, and I promise you, watch your sales rise and just get in touch and we'll give you examples of when we've done that with people who were just holding themselves back. And then as soon as they took the break off, sales went through the roof because they had a great product, they had great service, they had great knowledge. People needed it. Just they wouldn't tell anybody. And that's a shame. Anyway, I hope this has been useful to you. Don't let that stereotypical salesperson that who you are not ever going to be stop you from being the person who can explain your true value, because they're costing you a lot of money and they're not even real. It's inside your head, and that's what makes it so easy to fix. Anyway, I'll let you go. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope it's been useful, and I hope you get in touch because it's an easy thing to solve, I promise you.